Headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Let's talk to the Campaign for Real Education lead, Chris McGovern. Good morning, Chris.
Morning to you.
What do you think about that?
Well, the schools and education are in a minefield when they start dealing with this topic because, of course, we've got a very, very serious issue. So one doesn't know what these schools are thinking of, because when they talk about propaganda, what we can see on our screens is pictures of people suffering massively. And I do think, I've advised Margaret Thatcher, John Major, and I've also advised Michael Gove. And I have to say, the only person I've dealt with the Secretaries of State, Prime Ministers for decades. I was Kenneth Clarke when he was Education Secretary. He said basically, look, we're going to stop teachers teaching about contemporary current issues. I mean, they're too sensitive, they're too controversial, and schools should really take a step back. We can't make judgments about what's going on in the Ukraine as it's happening. We can, of course, ask children to be, to stay calm. Of course we can. I think it was one of the Chinese leaders, when he was asked about the importance of the French Revolution, said it was too soon to tell. In other words, you need 200 years perspective on it. We can't be talking about, we don't know what's going on fully in Ukraine. Of course we don't. And of course you can try to calm children down. But I think here teachers are dabbling in things they themselves don't know very much about, and very likely trying to peddle some sort of political message. What they're really saying is that whatever you hear, which doesn't come from our school, is propaganda. So this is really dangerous territory, and it's really panicking children as well, I think, because they're going to get even more worried when they're told what they're told by the BBC or talk radio is all propaganda. It's a very dangerous game. But the Russians are playing exactly the same thing. If you read today's newspapers, the Russians are sending videos into every school in Russia to say Russia is part of a peaceful nation promoting peace. They're getting children on the video to say that, of course, the Ukrainians are the devils and so forth. So, our education system shouldn't be supporting the propaganda machine of Mr. Putin.
Again, this is pure speculation on my part, but I think you know where I'm coming from. I would suggest that the teachers telling these kids this nonsense are of the Corbynista frame of mind, that actually Russia is a Marxist paradise, and we should be careful before criticising it. They cannot stop themselves leaning towards the East and the communist ethos, even though it's a long time since Russia has been a communist country. That's what I think's going on. They prefer to perhaps trust the Russians than they do to trust the Western mainstream media.
Well, you're speaking more truth than you realise. I mean, if you go back just a couple of years to the massacres in Paris, the IS massacres in Paris, we had a model lesson put on the Times educational supplement website. It's a big source of information for teachers. It gave the teachers a model lesson to teach the children about those murders in Paris. And what they asked the children to do was to imagine they were members of ISIS and to think about good things about being members of ISIS. And they just took children to the ISIS website. And I got a call from the security services because I spoke to a national newspaper about this, and it became a bit of a story at the time. And the security services are asking me, why didn't I tell them about this? Why was I talking to a newspaper? That's the level and that's what's going on in schools. It's the level of our security services. They really are dabbling in very dangerous territory. As far as the left and Corbyn goes, I mean, you've got a problem here because the campaign for nuclear disarmament, if they had got their way, we would be in real trouble now. And those people who are now talking about abolishing nuclear weapons need to understand, and this is broadly speaking on the left, that they need to understand without nuclear weapons now, we really would be in trouble. And it's become a bit of a game, this, in schools. And you've got people who are highly committed, who have a particular viewpoint, who are indeed promoting a particular agenda in schools. It's time the government woke up to the indoctrination of our children in our schools.
Absolutely. And what these people believe, this is the Corbynista kind of principle, is this, that this whole situation in Ukraine is due to awful NATO expansionism and the West's ambitions towards Eastern territories. In other words, down the line, it's all our fault. And I think that's what's being pumped at these kids at this one school in South London. We're not naming it yet because we have approached it for a comment, and we're looking forward to receiving what they say. But that's what's going on. It's a viewpoint that should not be brainwashed into children, isn't it?
You're right. And you know what? If I was teaching in that, and I've taught history for many years, so I've got a lot of experience of history teaching, obviously. What they should be teaching children is Peter the Great, who came to Greenwich, who came to London, by the way, and spent time here. And he's the great hero of President Putin. He's the great hero, the man who founded St. Peter. But now it's fine. You teach about Peter the Great, because what Peter the Great did was to invade the Ukraine. And he expanded Russia. And that's a historical perspective. That's legitimate when you're talking, particularly to sixth form. I remember at school, I was learning about those sorts of things. But they're dabbling now in things which are beyond the capacity of teachers to deal with, unless they've got a political message. Why would you deal with these topics, these controversial topics now, other than to get across your own personal opinions? And it's very dangerous territory. By all means, reassure children. But look, when you're talking about the Russian arguments and all of this, I think you're in pretty dangerous territory. You're basically supporting what the Russians are doing, and I think that's quite dangerous. And to say all our media outlets are propaganda, look, we all know that in war the first casualty is truth, but we also know that there are good and bad in all of this. And we've got a situation here where children, mothers, parents, soldiers are dying on the streets of the Ukraine. They have been invaded. We're back to 1939. They need to wake up to this. This is aggression, and you have to face up to aggression and tell children, if you're going to tell them anything, no, you're in a country which at least can defy these people. Has the capacity to, because we have nuclear weapons if we have to. But you know, my own view is probably Kenneth Clark was right. Don't say too much about it.
No, that's right. Kids will get alarmed by it. They shouldn't have broached the subject at all, and certainly not in the terms that they did. Chris, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. Chris McGovern from the Campaign for Real Education.